Starr and D'Amico Show brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Men's, women's, children's t-shirts in all sizes. Hoodies too. Aprons, anything for merchandise, cheapesttshirts.ca. Buy today, ship tomorrow. McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street, your home away from home for all Montreal Canadiens games and your home for D'Amico and Starr live once a month. Check out their website. Check them out in person, 1210 Peel Street in downtown Montreal. LittleBearOnline.com. Chuck and Evie and they're an amazing staff care about your pet as much as you do. Curbside pickup, local delivery. On St. Catherine across from Westmount Square, LittleBearOnline.com. And by Catherine Prince Realty. Remax Platine certified broker, the best in the business. South Shore, moving to Brossard, moving to Montreal to be closer to the Montreal Canadiens. Check out our website, Catherine with a K, CatherinePrince.ca. Just want a home evaluation? None better than Catherine Prince. Welcome to a brand new week. There he is, Marco D'Amico from Parts Unknown today. Where do we have the pleasure of hooking up today, my man? What's good?
I'm St. Colm up north. Very,
Lovely.
very far.
How pretty are this is me getting older. I'm going to ask you about the leaves. How pretty are the leaves? This is me getting older.
Ancient. No, it looks really good up here. I mean, the colors are great. It's always good to get away to a cottage up north if you don't have one already, or you could rent one. It's always good to get away this time of year.
Well said. I hope you're enjoying it, you and the family, taking some relaxation time as the grind of the Montreal Canadiens season is on in a big way as we near the second half of the month of October. And let's talk about number 93, who grows and grows in confidence in my eye, I'm sure in yours as well, in each passing game, but isn't enough. Can they get more, or is this managed well by Martin St. Louis? Your impressions here as we go through the Montreal Canadiens on this game day, the Habs and Buffalo Sabres at 7:30 tonight. Take note of that start time, Montreal and Buffalo at 7:30. The Sabres starting to cook a little bit here, coming off a nice shutout win on Saturday. But let's talk about your early impressions before we dive deep on Ivan Demidov so far, Marco.
I mean, I like the progression that we're seeing. This is a player that hasn't necessarily been asked to be physical in general, that is just taking the initiative to use his body more and more to separate, opponent from puck and to create some time for himself. His shiftiness along the boards is really starting to become an elite quality of his.
Yeah. Just
being able to shift guys out with the cycling and the rotation. Like, for a player that skilled to be able to play that kind of game, it bodes extremely well for his NHL career in just terms of being able to, create space for himself and to create, plays for his teammates. Many plays we saw throughout the last 2-3 games, have just been the fact, due to his shiftiness, due to the way that he thinks the game. And honestly, just consistently every single game you see him just getting better.
Well, let's get into it. After 6 games, again on this game day, Demidov has a goal and 3 assists for 4 points. As it stands right now, he's 4th on the team in scoring on a team, Marco, that right now has 21 goals for. That's the 4th highest total in the National Hockey League. But yet, when you dive a little bit deeper into the numbers, it's about earning, right? Does he deserve? To me, it's more about earning. 6 forwards average more ice time than Demidov does. First line member Juraj Slafkovsky, who scored a nice goal on Saturday night to get the party started, averages 4 more minutes per game than number 93. I don't want this to come across as a Slafkovsky versus Demidov debate here, but for a team that's scoring goals, for a forward that is 4th on the team in scoring, I think we've come to the point in the schedule, and again, only a handful of games deep, Marco, but to me, he's earned more ice time. Your read.
Well, I think the difference between Slafkovsky and Demidov is quite honestly just that one plays on power play wave number 1 and the other one plays on power play wave number 2. You have the first wave plays between a minute and a half compared to the second wave that plays between 30 seconds to 45 seconds, right? So right there and then there's a 45 second to minute difference per power play. If you look at last night, I believe the Canadiens had 2 power plays, 3, if I'm not mistaken. That'll make your difference right there. So it becomes a question of, the fact that they're used evenly in 5-on-5. And I thought, the Demidov, Kapanen, and Newhook line actually was the best 5-on-5 line for the Canadiens on Saturday night, and analytically and from the eye test. It's just they couldn't connect, and Jonathan Quick robbed Ivan Demidov a couple of times as well in the slot. So I thought they were finding their mojo, but I continue to state this, and I think Martin St. Louis you kind of saw glimpses of it at the end of the game, but I really do feel like now that there isn't a cohesion on line 2 or 3, I would very much like to see it 5-on-5, a more dangerous setting for a guy like Demidov, where he could play with maybe an Alex Newhook, and the guy I've been pushing since the beginning, Zachary Bolduc.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, it also points to what is still, and we're going to talk about this later this week. So make sure you subscribe and like and set the notifications to the Starr and D'Amico show. We're going to talk about the obvious glaring hole that remains, the lack of a bona fide, consistent 2C in the aftermath of the Montreal Canadiens losing 3 guys for Saturday night. The worst case is Caden Gooley out 4 to 6 weeks with an LBI. Doc and Line remain day-to-day. So stay tuned as we dive deep into the lack of a 2C and what that timeline is. A little bit more pressed, but further on Demidov, right? 4th on the team in shooting percentage, right? How do you think Martin St. Louis has handled him? You brought up a money point about the power play usage and everything else. You go online, man. Every fan that pays attention to every minute of this game this season, everybody sees the same thing. What do you think? I'm going to ask you to do a dangerous thing. Get into the head of Martin St. Louis. What do you think he sees when he's out there managing the allotment of ice time?
You want to go with your guys, the guys that already had got you to this dance, that got the organization to where they're at. But at the same time, you want to bring on this guy who has the potential to be the most talented player on the team.
No kidding.
So you have to balance that, right? And if you look back to the way that he handled Lane Hutson, it was the same thing last year. Second power play wave, he started getting some minutes because of injury and situation. But Lane Hutson really only started getting the full push of Martin St. Louis' approval by mid-November. I feel like that's probably what's going to happen with Demidov, is like they just want to ease him in the first month, and then you really take off and you give him all the minutes and you give him the first power play wave and this and that. To me, look, Ivan Demidov is dangerous on whatever wave you put him on. And I didn't think it was by chance that beautiful cross-ice pass to Nick Suzuki that resulted in a one-timer goal for him, his first of the season. That's exactly what Demidov can do from the right circle, and that's what we've been talking about since the very beginning. As he is a much better fit at the right circle than Juraj Slafkovsky, and I feel like Nick Suzuki in this situation would be a much better fit in the bumper than a guy who's also really good in the bumper in Zachary Bolduc. And then you have Cole Caulfield on the other side. I think that would complete that power play, get Demidov the minutes that he needs, and then Bolduc could be the main trigger guy along with Patrick Laine and Noah Dobson on the second wave, and you can bump Kirby Dach when he comes back to health to the right circle on the second wave. And I think at that point, everybody's in the right chair.
Some good points there, because again, I'm going to take you back to average time on ice, right? Obviously you've got the 3 beasts on the blue line, Matheson, Hudson, and Dobson, leading the way in average ice time per game. Then there's the captain. Then there's Caden Gooley. Well, now he's hurt. Then there's Cole Caulfield, and then there's Juraj Slafkovsky, Alex Newhook, Jake Evans, Zachary Bolduc, all averaging more ice time per game. And, when you outline the power play and perhaps the uneven split here through 6 games, the shorthandedness of Jake Evans, of Alex Newhook also factor in. So I guess it does come down to how the coaching staff is going to manage Demidov. And maybe it is like the point you've been making, and a lot of people in the chat last week, a lot of people want to invest, Marco. They want you to get a whiteboard. They want you to start drawing things up, because, the other point you brought up here that I think most people that are watching can agree on is the passing ability, the board battles from Demidov. And that just, to me, emphasizes, doesn't it, Slafkovsky in front of the net, and you've got Demidov picking his partners in order to distribute the puck. How else can he gobble up more ice time? Because he's earned it.
At this point, just continue to play his game. I think, defensively, you're starting to see a little bit more implication from him. Blocking passes. He's getting himself in good coverage situations. In the neutral zone, making smart decisions. I don't think he's hurting this team in any way, shape, or form. In fact, his line was analytically the best 5-on-5 line on Saturday night against the Rangers. Yeah. And I thought that, it was more a question of chemistry and being able to follow. Like, at the beginning, you thought that there was a good amount of chemistry between him and Kapanen. That's seemingly gone to the wayside a little bit, and you see a little bit more actual chemistry with Alex Newhook. It's just a question of being able to finish those plays, but they've been finding each other on the ice all the time at 5-on-5. So I like that combo. Just a question of being able to find someone to finish it, whether that's Newhook playing center and then Baldzuk playing on the other side, and you have a Baldzuk Newhook Demidov line, or you stick with Kapanen, but you swap Baldzuk for Newhook and you have a more defensive third line. There are combinations, especially now with Line A and Doc's injuries. But when those guys go out, I would assume that a guy like Demidov would be the one to get the increased ice time. Turned out it was Zachary Baldzuk, who hasn't been bad in any way, shape, or form. I don't think he's hurt the team. I think his intensity has been there. But we haven't seen that scoring drive that we saw in the first couple of games that had everybody rejoicing over the trade real early. And I think that's kind of normal in the sense that you got to find your identity, you got to find your footing. But the difference between Zachary Baldzuk and Ivan Demidov is Demidov had 7 games to do so last year. So he's already familiar. He already knows. He's already got chemistry with his teammates, some that he skated with all summer. So use that to your advantage early on this season. That's the way I see it. And in that sense, and that that, well, I wouldn't hold back in any way, shape, or form. And I understand that Baldzuk was acquired to be that bumper player, but you don't have to force it onto the first wave just because he was effective in St. Louis in a different setup where Cole Caulfield is not Rob Thomas feeding him, right? It's not the same scenario. It's not the same setting. Lane Hudson is a different beast at the point. The whole system is different. So I think you have to adapt accordingly. And, for what you have in front of you, I think the Canadiens are better off with a diamond formation. And that is where I think an Ivan Demidov would be a beauty fit for them on the right circle.
I mean, the skill is undeniable. His twists and turns. I mean, he's making NHL veterans, NBA style break ankles with how quick he maneuvers. And I remember in the summer months, you and I were talking about Demidov's style of play and looking at NHL comps. And I know Demidov grew up being a huge Nikita Kucherov fan. I mean, you see the moves, and I think I also see a very tough hockey player. Like, sometimes we associate high-end skill with air quote soft or perimeter play. He has none of those things in the early blushes. I mean, that's a pretty fair read. I mean, this guy is, I don't want to say fearless, but he doesn't shy away from the tough areas in the ice. And I really respect that about his game because, again, it's not something you often attribute to high-end skill players, and he has the potential to be a very, very high-end skill player at this league.
Yeah, I think when he was told, when we were talking to him through RG throughout the entirety of the year last year, he was told really to expect physicality when he got to North America, and I think he took that seriously, which is good to see, and it speaks to his maturity. But, this is a guy who is actively using his body to win one-on-one battles. Yeah. This is a guy who is not shying away from the initial contact in a dump and chase situation. This is a guy who is using his body to properly protect pucks and retain possession in the neutral zone so that he can create, passes and odd man rushes. It's really good to see because those are basic habits that you want to see from a young pro before you give them the ball. Yeah. And that's why I believe that he should have it already, because I find his game at 5-on-5 already quite polished for a rookie, especially for a winger that people thought, wasn't necessarily the best defensively. Well, yeah, he's going to have some growing pains in that regard. But, and I'm not saying this to be negative, but, you look at Cole Caulfield's rookie season where he was called a unidimensional forward, that all he could do was score. Remember, a lot of people used to say that. And you look at him today. Well, I think Ivan Demidov is ahead of him in terms of his two-way ability in his rookie year, and he's younger. So that says everything you need to know about where I think Ivan Demidov's game can go. And the fact that he's already getting the basics out of the way, that he's excelling already in those kinds of situations, playing a cycle game as one of the most talented players on the team, shows a willingness to buy into what Martin St. Louis is trying to do, and shows a willingness to adapt to the role that he's being given. That to me is elite hockey IQ, and that's why I always believe that the cream will rise to the top with players like that. So it's just a matter of time, and when it does, everyone is going to say, well, I told you so, because yes, it is the obvious outcome, but there's the behind the scenes stuff, there's the in practice stuff that maybe fans don't see, where Martin St. Louis would like to see him get a little bit more settled. And I think at that point, the ball will be given and he will be tasked with running the power play with Lane Hudson.
It's game day. The Montreal Canadiens wrap up their 4-game homestand Monday against a little bit of a hotter Buffalo Sabre team than the one that we saw right out of the gate that had scored a combined 2 goals and were looking non-existent, and players already getting a little agitated at the lack of anything really out of Buffalo, coming off a big shutout win on Saturday night. And then the Canadiens are off for 4 games out west to Western Canada, beginning Wednesday at Calgary, Thursday at Edmonton, Saturday at Vancouver, and then they wrap it up the following week at Seattle. And that reminds me to remind you how much we're very much looking forward to meeting all of y'all at McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street, Wednesday this week, with our live viewing party starting at 7 o'clock ahead of the Montreal Canadiens and Calgary Flames. Something tells me Ivan Demidov is going to get a little bit more of a harder look as the Canadiens move out west. You can follow Marco D'Amico at MN D'Amico. Read him all the time at rg.org. Marco, very much looking forward to Wednesday, our live show Wednesday night. And, of course, we're going to dig in to a hot issue that is still there, the 2C and the need for one. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you Wednesday.